Thank you for joining me for another Watercolor Wednesday, everybody. Today I'm going to be using two different paintbrushes. This mop brush, which I'm using to apply the background, and also a size 14 round brush, both of which I will link in the description if you're interested in purchasing them. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on how to apply the background, I did recently just put out a tutorial that went over exactly that. So if I remember, I will link it in the top right corner of this video, otherwise it will be in the description. But as a quick tip, you just want to make sure that your background gradient is most intense at the bottom of the page, simply because we're going to be using two techniques, both size and intensity of the colors, to create perspective and depth. And obviously if the entire sheet is the same shade, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to create that depth that we are looking for. So, like I mentioned, there are two ways to create depth, or at least two techniques that we're going to be using. One of those is the color intensity and the size of the specific trees. So as you could see on the trees that I painted on already, they're much smaller and thinner in size, and they're much lighter. So all you do is you use the exact same color, you just water it down quite a bit. So up until this point, at least, where you see me adding this brown, I have only used two colors for these paintings, and you're primarily only going to be using two colors. Almost the entire left painting was done using brown, and almost the entire painting on the right will be will be completed using just one type of blue. But I'm also going to be adding black and a little bit of sort of a red maroony color to the left painting, but again, those are not necessary. Only two colors and a black are really necessary to achieve this look. And I wanted to do two paintings with contrasting moods, I guess, sort of a warmer brown one and a cooler blue one, just to achieve two different looks using the exact same technique. So basically, to achieve that depth that I was talking about, you want to paint on your trees bigger and darker the closer that you want them to appear in the painting. So right now, the current tree that I'm painting here definitely had some black mixed in with the brown, and this is because I want that tree to appear closest to the viewer. I also stretched it all the way to the top of the page and made the tree the bark a lot thicker than some of the trees in the background. You can also see me adding some very fine details here to the painting, so just to make the bottom portion look a little bit more, complicated, and to add even more depth, I'm adding little twigs and branches growing up from the bottom of the page there. And I even created a little path simply by lifting off the paint while it was still wet, and that's super important. You want to work with the paint when it's still wet. And so you see me repeating the exact same process with the blue side of the painting. And don't worry if the trees sort of end abruptly at the bottom, because we are going to be adding even darker pigments to sort of mask those endings and make it a little bit more natural looking. But again, to create that depth, you just want to create more intense and pigmented trees in the front, and smaller, shorter, thinner, and lighter trees in the back to create that depth. When you are adding extra layers like I am now, you want to make sure that you cover the entire page in water again. And this is to prevent that cauliflower effect that you see sometimes happening in your paintings. So just make sure that when you are adding another layer, that your first layer is completely dry. Otherwise you'll sort of wash out and spread out the paint and it will bleed everywhere, and you won't maintain the integrity and the details that you worked so hard to achieve. So just make sure that it is completely dry when you are adding extra layers. So here you can see me adding even more layers just to make the background look a little bit more hazy. You saw me sort of adding some random dots. I flicked some watercolor just all over the painting just to add a little bit more complexity to it. And I'm repeating the exact same process with the blue painting. I wasn't really sure what I was hoping to achieve here, so I was just, I don't know, playing around with the painting, adding some intense blue colors. I also decided to add some details in the trees. So on the blue painting, I added sort of this blue canopy over the trees. I wasn't really a fan how it turned out, so I didn't do the same thing on the brown side, but I did add a few dots at the end of the thin branches to make it look like little leaves were still hanging on from fall time. And I added even more intensity simply by drawing some black twigs and branches coming from the bottom, adding a little bit more flicked paint on the painting, and that's about it. It's as simple as that. Thank you very much for watching my video today, guys. Don't forget to check out that background painting tutorial, and I will see you next week for another video.